We had a lot of demand to help block sites that aren't necessarily appropriate by customers. And we started looking at how web control could be used in a normal environment. And some of the challenges we saw was most people, when they think about web control, they're thinking about DNS. They think about using DNS servers to block websites, so essentially black holing the IP address, which is all very well and good, but it's not very streamlined. I think that was the biggest challenge we saw.
It's not the greatest user experience.
If you go back to the early 2000s, DNS was actually really good at this, because essentially what would happen is you go to a website, so you go to bet365.com, and it would redirect you to a different IP address, which would be the IP address of the web blocking software. And that would have a page that said something like, this site's been blocked, you can request access here. Now, it would never carry the user information through DNS, but it would give you that nice page, and at least someone could request it and somebody could respond to that request. However, something changed, security, surprisingly.
Security happened.
Security happened and everything got broken. So all websites went to HTTPS and started using HSTS, which meant even if it redirected you to a non-HTTPS version, it would just give you an error saying this site requires HTTPS based on previous experience. And that really broke web control and the nice user experience. Now, the nice thing about DNS is it's agentless. So our phones are protected, our other devices that come on our land. The other bad problem with it is it doesn't protect you when you're at home. So if you take your work laptop home, you've got a big problem, because you're now no longer protected. So you go home, you go on bad websites, you come back to the office, and bad things start happening. We looked at this and said, how can we give the user a really nice experience? We started off by thinking about, well, how can we actually effectively block? And that part was easy, because we have an agent.
We have an agent. We had all the pieces ready. We had a firewall. We can block things. So one might say it's a logical extension of everything else that we were doing.
That part's easy, blocking. But users getting access denied pages are not something that's really effective. And when we start thinking about what do people want to block, so we started asking customers, what do you want to block? And the obvious ones came up. Adult sites, we don't want explicit content in our organization. Gambling sites was definitely another big one. But some of the more nuanced things that came up were project management software. And so some of the categories people were actually saying were things like LLMs.
LLMs is huge.
Big problem. Companies getting their data, people using it without authorization from the business. Project management software was another one. And just, I think they were the number two categories.
Two ones requested.
So it's not just about blocking bad sites, but it's also about
blocking stuff you don't want people to be going to.
We went away and we said, how do we build a web control solution that enables it? And then the third complaint I think we heard from customers is misclassification of domains. And that's been a challenge that we spent a lot of time working on, and we announced Insights at Zero Trust World. And the idea of Insights is we could actually see data across the board. And I didn't realize how helpful it was going to be in this endeavor to build a good web content filtering solution. So companies saying, hey, this site is listed as adult content when it's not. For example, x.com was considered adult content, and not untrue, because it does contain adult content sometimes, but also that's not the true intent of how you'd categorize it. I would think social media would be a more appropriate category.